We met God when we met white people. We brought the creator to America.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
You know, last week we talked about Pastor Marvin Winans with the lines and the tithe and the lady didn't have the amount of money and all of this stuff. And then, you know, there's a lot of commentary about, well, that's the church, blah, blah, blah. And it's, you know, there are people who right now who are, you know, have walked away from God, you know, walked away from the church because of things like that. You know, I grew up in the era of Reverend Ike and Father Divine. You know, there's a car wash scene with Richard Pryor doing a spoof on them, you know, showing up, Daddy Grace, you know, very, very, and, you know, I think about, you know, periods of hard times when people are searching for things. I've shared with the audience getting ready for school. It was Jimmy and Tammy Faye Baker on my TV show, my TV, as my mother was doing my hair every morning. And there would be BB and CC Winans. I didn't know who they were, but I know they could sing. And that was how I got ready to go to school every morning. And it was just interesting how entrenched we are in this thing, while we also, I think, inherently know that there's a colonized way in which too many of us worship God, very colonized.
Very.
And then there's a battle, you know, and now you bring in the ancestors and people see conflict because they've been told that this is devil worship or this is the occult.
Right.
So for you doing a rites of passage, and also being the choir director of a church, you at church every Sunday. Every Sunday. How do you explain to people the convergence between the God that we've been taught, the one that may be blue-eyed and blonde, you know, on the cross looking frail, and the God of our ancestors and our ancestors? How does it commingle?
First of all, I distinguish between God and the creator. That always helps me. We met God when we met white people. We brought the creator to America. The creator is the creator of all things, the maker of all things, the conceiver of all things. That's the creator. God is the protagonist in a book. That book is called the Bible. And I'm not mad at it, but I want people to be very clear that God is a particular character for a particular people. God is a particular name under a particular theological heading. So that distinction, I think, is extremely, extremely important to make. And the reason this is important, too, is what it helps us understand is Black ancestors were praying to the creator. They were using the word God as a form of subterfuge, as a form of deception in order to fool people into believing that they were actually serving the same God. Don't you know our people had enough sense to know ain't no way you can serve the same God of the people who despise you? Because that God hates your destiny.
Their God.
They were using the same language because they were doing it in English. See, that's where this gets tricky. They were doing it in English. And so they used the word God, but they actually were talking to the creator. And there are all kinds of ways, you know, they were absolutely revising even the text as people were reading it to them. You know, folks were saying, well, you don't have to do anything to be saved. All you got to do is believe to be saved. What African ancestors said, they turned around and created songs called, you got to show some sign if you're going to walk with God. You can't know. No, you cannot just talk about you accept it. They said, if you love Jesus, you ought to show some sign, which means there ought to be, hey, God, there ought to be a manifestation in your life that shows your dedication to this notion of holiness. It cannot simply be something you believe in your head. So they said, we reject that idea. 12 gates to the city. Though the church was saying there's one way to get to God. African people said, no, you can come from the east. There's 3 gates in the east, 3 gates in the west. There's 3 in the north. Come on, somebody. In other words, they were revising the text as it was being handed to them. That's extremely important. The other thing, very quickly, Karen, is what most people don't know is generally the Black church has been sustained not by the theology, but by the music. It's gospel music. It's the music that has kept the church, not the theology.
Ooh, you saying something? So you talking about Mahalia Jackson? You talking about Clark's sisters? You
Sisters,
talking
you're talking
about
about Aretha
the
Franklin.
Winans?
You're talking
Yes,
about the
Aretha
Winans. You're
Franklin.
talking about
Yes,
Kirk Franklin. Absolutely. That's what has sustained the church. It is the choir. It is not the pulpit. The pulpit is the place of the theology. The pulpit, this physical pulpit, this literal phallic structure right in the center of the church, right? That's not the thing that has kept Black people. What's kept Black people is the music, because we literally sung ourselves around the theology of the bondage of the theology.
unless we're talking about a Pastor Jeremiah Wright, or we're talking about Howard Thurman, or we're
Yes.
talking about even on some level an Adam Clayton Powell Jr.
See,
Or
yes,
Martin Luther King Jr. or like who brought a different thing into the pulpit.
that's right. But see, even those men, Martin Luther King, if he had his way, when he'd speak, he'd put Mahalia up first. See, if you pull the Jeremiah Wright, right? If you put most of them before they preach, the choir is going to give a selection. Hey,
Got you. All right. And I just want to, again, I was raised, I went to Catholic school, but raised very Baptist, and got baptized at 11, went to church every Sunday. There's a very specific way that I think we don't even think about, and I think we should be thinking about all of the ways in which we've been told to do things.
That's right. That's right, Karen. Because really, Malidoma Some explains this. Really, the Black church was doing ritual, but they didn't know it.
Correct. So if you're struggling today, I would love to hear from you too. If you're one of those people who think that, worshiping your ancestors, is it worship though? Honoring your ancestors, acknowledging your ancestors. If you're a person that believes that, any conversation with ancestors is antithetical to God and the work of God, I would love to hear from you today, because I think that this is the thing. As I was in class with you last night, I was like, this is the way forward. Isn't this how the Haitian Revolution was
Don't get me started.
was forged in this very thing that we were doing last night? And I was like, is it worshiping the devil to free yourselves? I need us to be free.
And people, Jesus was an ancestor. Jesus was a real person. Jesus is an ancestor. And here's my thing. If the notion that Jesus died for me, I can walk with all day long. I'm not going to argue that. Nat Turner did too. Quite literally.
Quite literally. Yes.
Quite literally. And my problem is not the notion of Jesus. My problem is that we get afraid to exalt our own folks who gave to us directly and certainly as deeply, to exalt them to the place of worship. I don't care if we call it worship, reverence, whatever.
So walk us through this. Dr. Daniel Black been teaching for 30 plus years at Clark Atlanta, various different courses in African studies. I'm thinking about, like, who sat down to say no drums? We're gonna get rid of the drums. They can't gather. If they gather, we're gonna give them a specific Bible.
That's right.
We're gonna put certain kind of scripture. We're not gonna give them the whole Bible.
That's right.
Like, this was a concerted. Like, people need to understand how concerted an effort it was to strip us of the very power source after the Haitian Revolution. I think they get together.
Absolutely. Because in fact, what happened after the Haitian Revolution is Black folks in America heard about the Haitian Revolution, and then they didn't simply celebrate. Many of them, in fact, planned rebellions in order to leave here and go to Haiti. Like, let's join up with Haiti, because this is a Black what? Let's join up with Haiti. What most people don't realize is, but how did they hear about it? See, there was no internet then, right? This is 1800, this is literally 1801, 1793, right. How in the world did they hear about it? And where people are asleep is they heard about it because the folks who were running the ports were us. The folks who were manning the ships, bringing them in and out, were us. The people who were assisting folks on these ships were us. So when boats came from Haiti bringing sugar, because remember, Haiti was the richest nation in the Western Hemisphere, right? Remember that for y'all. Haiti was the richest colony, and America was getting its sugar from Haiti. So boats were coming from Haiti all the time to places like Charleston, to places like New Orleans, to places like New York. And it was Black folks. It was absolutely Black folks all up and down the East Coast. I mean, you could from Paul Cuffey all the way up in Massachusetts, right? So Black folks are here
using a church too.
That's right. That's right.
AME churches.
That's right. Using the church. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so what most people don't really realize is the way to which the church was really a trickster. It was a trickster home base for Black people. It was a trickster home base. Black people were doing all kinds of trickery in this place called the church, but they used a church because white people knew the notion of church, which meant that white folks then would not find it suspect. This is why Black people then and now have never generally been able to go to the same church. Not if Black folks do ritual. If we do ritual, white people can't stand that.
So where did it go off the rails? Because, even if we're thinking about the civil rights movement, a lot of that organizing happened inside churches, right? Where pastors were very, they were very clear that what they were doing.
That's right.
How do we get to Marvin Winans and the rest of the folk begging for money from people that don't have it?
I think it's a thing called assimilation. I think the act of assimilation, the era of assimilation, literally ruined the consciousness of the Black church. That's my thesis. I think assimilation. I think assimilation of schools. I think the assimilation of churches. And then the second thing is the assassination of our greatest leaders. I think the assassination of our leaders scared most people into believing that it's heaven or nothing.
All right. Well, listen. We are not going to not fight this time around. So we need all of the tools. And I was sitting there last night in class with you thinking about, the importance of community. Yes. That's the way forward. But also the importance of understanding that we need we need to be whole people. And I've been saying this from day one, but you gave us an assignment last night that is like self-reflective. Even the parent question is self-reflective. It is, why am I here? I'm not here to have I'm not here to be an influencer. I'm not here, and you gave us 8 reasons why we should be here. And I appreciate that. We're going to say less about it. But I want to play this clip because it was a melanemic, palm-colored lady, Dr. Sarah Kerr. And she said this thing, and it made me sit up because I was like, I'm not used to hearing this kind of commentary out of this kind of person. So I'm saying maybe people are awakening to the reality that we all are connected. All of us. Yes. Play the clips, Ms.
One of the reasons that death is so difficult in dominant Western culture is because we don't have a space for the ancestors. We don't have a picture or an understanding of how the dead continue to be part of the community, continue to participate, continue to contribute, continue to be in relationship. They just disappear. Lights out, we call it. In traditions that have ancestor honoring rituals. Often it's a day a year. Maybe you go and clean the graveyards. Maybe you set up an altar. Maybe you have them set a place at a dinner table. Of course, there's a beautiful Mexican Day of the Dead. There are lots of different cultures that have traditions that say, this is the day we honor our dead. What it does is tells dying people that they will not be forgotten, that they will still have a place. That's the emotional thing that it does to serve the dying and to serve the living. But it also does a very important ritual task, which is create a time when the living and the dead are closer. Ritual is one of the things that kind of lifts the veil between this world and the next. And when it's a ritual that has an established cadence, happens on this day every year, we can all kind of set our clocks to it. The dead know this is a time we'll be available and awake and aware and open to them. And we know this is a time we can connect. So it's like a meeting place in time where these ritual practices and the way they're repeated create this field where the dead are once again part of the community. They can't stay here. They belong on the other side of the river. But for a moment, we get to reconnect, and then we go back to our respective sides again.
She almost has it, Dr. Sarah Carr. And I'm glad she don't have it. Center for Sacred Death Care is what she's, it's almost like, I've discovered Cajun spices.
And you think
this is how
now.
Right. This is I'm now a chef.
Right.
It's interesting because she, and I'm not going to correct her, but I think it's interesting to hear her talk about ritual and ancestors when that's not, and I think the world that we're in right now, they think that this is it. The energy that we're in is like, let's destroy everything. If I can't run it, if I can't control it, if I can't have the kind of life I want, I'm going to ruin everything. I'm going to burn down everything because there's nothing on the other side. There are whole cultures that don't believe there's a heaven. And then those that believe there's a heaven somehow believe that they're on the right. They don't even read that book.
Right.
But it's an energy of like separation from like the continuous thread of our existence.
That's right.
And if you do know that this never ends, then why would you want to be so damn horrible?
That's right. And Karen, what I love about this clip, what I absolutely love about this clip is that this notion of ancestral veneration, this notion of ritual is being spoken about. It's being spoken about in a, I'm going to be nice. It's being spoken about by people other than us. Right.
Yeah, that's why I played it. I said, hey,
exactly.
What's happening?
Exactly. And what it's really showing is this, because you're right. There's one part that I was like, she didn't get quite that part right, but that's good. That's good. It's fine. What I think is so profound here, though, is if a people do not understand the role of ancestors, if people are not connected to ancestors, they have no tomorrow. I'm going to say this and somebody's going to get it. I hope they'll get it in my lifetime. The reason most people don't vote is because they don't know their ancestors. I said it. Mm-hmm. Because if you knew your ancestors, I'm not talking about the fact that you owe it to them to vote. No. Mm-mm. If you knew your ancestors, you know you're becoming one. And that's why you vote. Because I'm going to hand the world to my children. Most people don't vote because they like, what difference will it make? The only way to have that kind of outline, the only way to have that kind of outlook on life is you think that you are the beginning and end of your total reality.
How selfish.
It's really how untaught.
Untaught. Okay. Yeah. And I'm trying to be less judgy. It's hard though, because we're sitting in it right now. I just watched this Netflix thing, a house full of dynamite. And I'm like, Idris Elba is the president. And it still goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're competent people.
Yeah.
This ain't that. Like, we don't even have, I'm not even comfortable with this current iteration of our government.
Yes.
If there's a house full of dynamite, we all going boom. And so I was thinking about that today, like, what do we do? Well, there's nothing we can do about it because November was the time that you should have done something because the nuclear codes were still in play in November, but somehow that didn't phase anybody because it's going to be okay. You never consider this all could go away, and it can. So then some would say nihilistically, Dr. Daniel Black, what's the point if it can all go away? Why even bother?
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not beg.